Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel for part 2 of my interview with Ellen Whealton. Part 1 is linked in the description, where she shared her near-death experience and some of the information that she brought back from that. Today, we're going to dive into a Q&A where I will ask her about her experience with Jesus and the Buddha in more detail. And we discuss everything from reincarnation to judgment to the negative near-death experiences and why people have them. Ellen's links are all in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. Here's Ellen. I'd love to hear more about your experience with Jesus. Did you learn anything about him, or did he say anything to you?
Oh, he communicated with me not through words, but through his mind, in the whole experience. He was the only one that communicated with me at the time, other than me feeling loved and protected with who I, saw as Buddha later. I think with Jesus, there was just this embodiment of love. It was outside of human understanding, this love, and it's really very hard to explain about the other place and about being there with him, because it was a feeling. It was a feeling more than it was a feeling and a knowing than it was an experience.
Mm-hmm.
It was just this kind of weighted, loving energy, and his eyes were a big part of the experience for me. And when he came to me, he was standing in plain white robes, nothing fancy at the time, just communicating with me and allowing me to be in that space and experience the love and then make a choice. It was really just very freeing, no judgment. Everything was right in that moment.
Hmm.
It was just an incredible, loving experience. Yeah.
So he was the one giving you all the messages about gratitude and everything else.
No, he's the one that gave me the invitation and the choice. And
Okay.
the messages from about gratitude and purpose and all that, that actually came from somewhere else. It was almost as if it just poured down on me, this knowledge, this
Mm.
wisdom within the moment. Once I made the choice, I received a massive amount of information about
Mhm.
what it means to be here and why, and yeah. So it was really cool.
And then you may have already answered this, but was there any communication from the Buddha, or was he just sort of there?
It was more of a feeling as well of the,
Yeah.
the energy. It was on my left side, and it just felt very grounding, very protecting in a way, not in a fierce protection feeling, but almost like this protective energy that was just holding space for me and helped me to feel safe and grounded. That's what it was. That's a good question. I've never thought about it. And Jesus was more love and acceptance and
Mm.
an embodiment of love. So, yeah.
That's very interesting, and it sort of makes sense with their different teachings and the roles that they played while they were here.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Both having different messages but also similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on reincarnation? I heard you mentioning past lives in another interview.
Yeah. Prior to my near-death experience, I don't know that I would have believed in reincarnation. But all that definitely has changed. I do believe that we relive lives in order to evolve spiritually from one life to another. And I do believe that we are here now in this time right now because we are needed. Everyone here is needed to help usher in a new spiritual world, a new way of being. And again, this is where it comes down to choice, and we all have human choice. We're given that. But since meeting the man that I believe is my twin flame, I have seen visions of past lives with him together. And it's really also been cool to see that, because I didn't really know that before. I had an experience when I was listening to crystal singing bowls for the first time. I went to a chapel in Austin and they were doing singing bowls, and I thought it'd be kind of cool. And during the experience, the man started singing and chanting Native American songs. And right when he started doing that, or right before that, this image of a medicine man was in front of me. And then I was shown things like in past lives that I had died of a head injury multiple times. And this was shown to me before too, when I was going through breathwork training, where I died of a head injury. And I knew that I had died all these times of a head injury. Once I was shot off of a horse. I saw my death in 3 lives. And then it all kind of came together, I guess, in that bowls experience, where I realized, oh, this is the life I'm meant to overcome it and teach people through it. So it's the same thing that I've experienced. And that was really profound for me. And as he was singing, he switched his song and started singing a more popular song. We all had our eyes closed. And my friend next to me started crying because that was the song that she and her brother that was their connection, and he had passed away the month before. So for that to happen was also really powerful for me to witness. And I started to recognize the power of frequency at that time. And I bought bowls less than a week later. That's how I got these oils in my practice, because I was using other oils, and now I'm like literally surrounded by them because it's high frequency everywhere. And constantly I'm using them to like release thoughts. I've learned that like scientific stuff too about how they work in the brain, and these oils move through the neuron, and all these things that fascinate me as a practitioner too. I get all the juicy information about everything. So anyway, I got off on a tangent, but yes, I do believe in past lives personally, and I respect anyone who has any belief system, but I've been shown things that, and yeah, we are here for a reason right now. This is why we're here too. We've evolved.
Would you like to talk about what you do? I know you do music therapy and you do oils, and so that and anything else, your book, anything that you want to share.
Oh, I'd love to. Yes. Okay. So I am a music therapist by trade. When I did something called the Bonnie method of guided imagery in music, which is a deeply altered state using music and visualization, I experienced the closest thing that I'd ever experienced to my near-death experience. And so it was at that time that I realized that that's what I was going to do as a music therapist. I'm going to do music and imagery, and that's what I did for 15 years after grad school. And then I listened to those bowls and brought bowls into my practice. I learned about Reiki and breath work, brought that in. And then I learned about the oils. And at first I was really resistant to oils because I was like, oh, I've never heard of it. I don't really know what it is. And I started using them for my own personal care because I have Lyme disease. And I switched different companies, I tried different things, and these oils just helped me to feel better. They can't cure, diagnose anything, but they helped me during my treatment. And I went into remission with Lyme, and kept using the oils to keep myself well. So then I started using them in my spiritual practice. People started seeing angels. They started moving through the session much more quickly. So rather than taking 2 or 3 times to start seeing and getting messages from light beings and source and their higher self, they were getting them right away with the oils. So I brought them into my practice. So now I use toning, light, color, and sound, and music and oils to all bring people into a higher frequency so they can receive messages and connect to their higher self. And really, people get direct messages from source, and they leave my sessions feeling really great, like they've gotten something they can take forward, and they shift through without having to talk about it. It just happens on a different level. They retain the messages, and then I give them practices to use with the oils to keep them in that high vibration for the next 7 to 10 days. I also help people connect with their intuitive gifts. So I do spiritual coaching, where that's more of me receiving downloads and messages for people to help them in their journey that are specific to them. And then we meet regularly to kind of keep that high vibration, keep the lessons coming. And we usually work together for 3 months at a time. So I take up to 3 clients at a time. and I'm just starting a new phase of that. I'm writing a book about my near-death experience and being mentored by Jack Canfield, who wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And he loves my story and my work, and he wrote about my work in the foreword of his most recent book that's coming out. And I'm actually going to be working with him in person at some point in the next year when people are traveling again, where I'll come there and do the bowls again. I have a spiritual TV show on the Awake TV network that it's a paid thing, so you might want to look at podcasts on Apple first, because then you can hear more about my story and what I do if you search for Ellen Whealton under your podcast in the Apple store. So there's that, and then I've just been invited to be in a movie about my near-death experience. So we're doing a lot in the next year. My book should come out sometime. I'm probably with the publishing. We're working on like art and stuff, starting to figure out the marketing. So I'm thinking like next year, early next year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll keep people posted. The best place to reach me is actually through Facebook, not my website. My website is not up to date very well. I can't figure out how to do it. I'm not a technical person. I need to get somebody else to do that for me. But you can find me on Facebook at Ellen Whealton, or Music Therapy and Essential Oils is my group, and I do bowls experiences in there and teach about the oils and the frequency. We have a lot of healthcare practitioners, so I have a lot of research in there. And then I have Music Therapy and Essential Oils on Instagram. So you can find me there too, and I'll do little bowls experiences a couple times a month. And I have a YouTube channel.
You have so much going on, and that's really exciting about your book.
I'm also doing an in-person retreat in Hawaii, and I wanted to share about that. Like, that's a 21-day meditation online first, and then we end it with a 6-day, 5-night retreat in Hawaii on the Big Island at this beautiful retreat center. And the prices start at $2,500 for 5 days, and it includes like all organic food and stuff. And we're kind of taking applications for that, so we have good energy around that. We have little cottages that people can have, and it's first come, first serve. So I'll send you a link for that too. I'm going to dive into all that juiciness of bringing in your light and purpose to the planet, so that we're calling it the sanctuary of light, where we just all meet and join in this place of light, this bowl of light that we know as Hawaii, and just reconnect to our purpose so we can go out and spread light to the world.
I remember you saying in your experience that we focus on a lot of things down here that we don't need to pay attention to. So what do we need to pay attention to?
Each other, how we act in the world, how we are. I talked about how we create stories in our head that are based on our perceptions and beliefs. Like, someone cuts us off in traffic, we are like, oh, that jerk, or whatever we say in our head that gives us an entitlement to sit in anger. Well, what if we were to shift our story and say, oh, that person might be having a bad day, or maybe they're having a baby, or you make up any story at all that gives you the ability to have compassion. Because if you think about it, you don't know what's really happening in the car in front of you. Nobody knows. It's just a story you put on it. And you can choose a story that keeps you in anger and keeps you at a low vibration, or you can choose a different story. So I like to tell people, just focus on the people. People matter. How you respond to people, how you act with people, it matters. And so that's what I would say. Like, we focus on all these things, like when I was a teenager, like who likes whom, and like, oh, this person made me mad, or at work we're just frustrated with a coworker or whatever. But we don't have to give that energy away. We can flip that energy into something more positive, like saying, okay, I'm not going to focus on that person. I'm going to do what I need to do to protect myself and keep myself happy and healthy. But I'm going to remove myself from a situation that makes me feel negative or makes me feel bad. I'm going to shift the story so that I can build more compassion into my day-to-day experiences.
I think that is such good advice, especially if people find themselves in a situation where they can't get away from someone, say if it's a coworker or maybe even a family member. Changing the story around that can be so powerful, just to free you.
Just to free you. And there are simple things you can do, like white angelica. You can put white angelica on your heart, and it protects you from negative energy for people. So then you can do that and release it. And it really does work. It's amazing. So there are little things you can do, just like that, just like you said, like a coworker or somebody. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the negative experiences and why do people have them?
Near-death experiences or regular?
Yes, near-death experiences.
Um, well, I think that here's the thing about near-death experiences. I think that the beginning of a near-death experience is partially our human perception on it. So even me on the raft and Jesus there and Buddha was based on my own experience on earth, and that was kind of a transitional place. And people may go, remember how people talk about, even in a place of darkness, to stay in your light and to connect to the light. I think that maybe in that transition place, it can be very confusing to someone who who maybe doesn't have the framework or background for how to understand this type of thing. So there might be that. Or it could be some karma stuff, that they need to move through that is telling them, hey, you're going to go back to earth. You're going to work through this so that you can come to a different understanding. Yeah, that's my best understanding of it, because my ex had a negative near-death experience. And he loved hearing about mine because it really balanced out his experience, which was more scary. But it's also the energy and the way that we respond. Remember how I talked about we're given situations, and the way that we look at them is really our challenge on our growth in evolution. So I'm sure there's a lot of fear around when someone is possibly going to pass. So as he came back from that experience, he may have placed a story on it too. Because when we're truly connected to source, and this is how I differentiate between human fear and source messages, there's no emotion when a source message comes through. It's not scary, it's not euphoric. It just is. And so I think that even with me, like for a long time, my story that I put on my near-death experience was, no one's going to believe it. I should never share it. They're going to think I'm crazy. And that kept me from sharing it. But there's equal healing in sharing the story of a negative near-death experience and a positive one, because you can work through it. And sometimes I think people get caught in the story and they forget that they can work through it. So it still is a gift, but it might be a gift of like, here's what you need to work through.
Right.
But of course, I don't know. That's just my guess on it.
Do you think that there is judgment for anybody on the other side, like even people who do really bad things in this life?
I think there is. I don't think there's judgment, because that's not how it works. Because because here's the thing. What we do in this life, always we have choice as humans. We can choose to do, what we quote see as the right thing or the wrong thing. And with that choice, we sometimes can be working through our path that we're supposed to work through. We may be put in a situation that puts us into a place where we make a wrong choice. And I believe people come back to redo it because they make the wrong choices, and they have to kind of pay for acts in the past. They kind of have to relive and make amends in a way. I believe that is true. And it may take multiple lifetimes to do that. But always in a lifetime, people have a choice to move away from that into the light. So even when people make they make huge bad choices, right? I do still believe there's an opportunity that they can try and take that and learn through it and kind of make themselves better so that they can keep that from happening with other people. And sometimes it's possible in this lifetime, and sometimes it's not, because we actually step into almost like a role. It's like we choose our parents. I believe that we choose our parents. We choose the people that we come into contact with. And if we're on an upward trajectory in our lives and we're making the right choices, we're reconnecting with our soul bodies and family more and more, especially in this lifetime. So that's kind of how I see that one. That's a tricky one, because I tend to be very, knock on wood, shielded from that side of it. Like having come out of my NDE, I know that my purpose is to work with music, sound, light, and color. I know it. And so luckily, because I surround myself with that and I choose that work, I have been insulated from the dark. So I can't speak to it very much because I have thankfully been protected from it. And that's just because in order for me to stay in my work and where I am, I've, I've been shielded from that.
Are there any final thoughts that you would like to share before we go?
Um, at this point in time where the world is so divided and there is a lot of fear, I would just invite people to be very conscious of what you're allowing in and give yourself a break. Just step away, be in your own energy, meditate, breathe, use things to make your frequency higher, connect with people who lift you up, and avoid people who don't, honestly, right now. It's not our time to fight and pull people onto the lifeboat. It's our time to really understand that, some of us have a different path. Some of us have a different path, and, they may not align with our path right now, and that's okay. So just my goal is to teach people that they can make a difference in their lives. They can change their experience by changing their thoughts. There are very simple and powerful practices that you can bring in daily to change your entire existence in a very short time. So I just would encourage everyone to seek out someone that you respect that does this kind of work, that can support you, give you knowledge and information, and keep you in that place of joy and gratitude. Because sometimes we just need a guide. So find a guide.
Thank you so much for that advice. Thank you for sharing your story and answering all of my questions. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much. It was a joy.